Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine starting a company with just $1,200. Hardly anything,
Yeah.
especially
Eh,
back then.
barely seed money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then over decades, just systematically growing it, acquisition by acquisition, strategic move after strategic move
Yeah.
into this, global tech empire, now worth well over $300 billion.
It's an incredible story. Truly relentless growth.
And the force behind it really is one of Silicon Valley's most, well, compelling and maybe controversial figures, Larry Ellison.
He certainly is. Yeah, you hear his name and words like competitive, aggressive, visionary, maybe relentless come to mind.
Totally.
His reputation is definitely that of a warrior in business. Always seems to be on the offensive, identifying the next target, the next opportunity.
Right. And for this deep dive, we're digging into a source that really dissects his strategy, his mindset. We're not just, retelling Oracle's history.
No, it's about the how.
Exactly. How did he think about competition? How did he use acquisitions like weapons? And how did Oracle navigate these massive industry shifts, like the cloud, to not just survive, but really dominate enterprise tech?
Yeah, the goal here really is to give you a clear shortcut into that strategic playbook. We want to understand the levers he pulled. How did he turn threats into advantages?
Mm-hmm.
How did buying companies become this tool, not just for growth, but for consolidating power, taking out rivals? And like you said, how did this company, so rooted in traditional software, make that huge leap to the cloud, even when Ellison himself was famously skeptical at first?
It's about getting to those core principles, right? The ones that underpin Oracle's dominance over such a long time. We've got some great specific examples from the source that really bring these ideas to life.
Yeah, these aren't just theories. These are strategies that played out in the real world, reshaped the tech landscape.
So let's dive into those. Let's start with something that seems really foundational to Ellison's whole approach. It's like part of his DNA, his view on competition itself. The source pulls out this really striking quote from him. Pick your enemies carefully. They define you.
That says a lot, doesn't it?
It really does. What's the core idea there? He doesn't see competitors as just obstacles, It's like he actively chooses them, leverages them.
It's such a different way of thinking than, say, finding a quiet niche, right? Instead of avoiding rivals, he seemed to deliberately target the biggest players out there.
Yeah.
And the strategic thinking behind that is, well, it's deep. Choosing giants like IBM, or later Microsoft, wasn't just about going head-to-head for market share, although obviously that was part of it.
Yeah.
It was about using that intense external pressure. So it's like a forcing function internally that, quote, they define you. It implies your rivals clarify who you are, your strengths, your weaknesses, and maybe most importantly, your level of ambition. Fighting a giant, it forces you to sharpen your strategy, innovate faster, push harder. It kind of elevates the whole organization's game.
And the source gives us some perfect examples. Let's rewind to the 80s and 90s. IBM was, they were the giant, right? Totally dominant, especially in databases, because their power was all tied up in their mainframe hardware business.
Exactly. IBM was the establishment. Their database, DB2, it was completely linked to selling their big, expensive proprietary hardware. That was their strength, but, it's also potentially a weakness.
Okay.
And Oracle, coming up, took this really contrarian stance. Ellison saw that the future wasn't necessarily just about these monolithic hardware boxes. He doubled down on the software layer, the database itself, and designed it to run not just on IBM mainframes, but on all sorts of hardware, Unix systems, and later, much cheaper commodity servers.
So IBM wanted you locked into their machines, but Oracle offered this flexibility, this idea you could run their database anywhere.
Precisely. Software first, hardware agnostic. That was the key. How did that help them carve out market share against IBM? Well, it opened up a much bigger market.
Right.
Customers weren't stuck with IBM's hardware cycles or vendor lock-in. They could pick the best hardware for their needs, maybe from different vendors, and still run Oracle's database. That platform independence, it was a huge differentiator back then.
Okay.
Oracle positioned itself as the superior database, period, not tied to the metal underneath. And that let them chip away at IBM, appealing to this broader, more flexible, and frankly, increasingly cost-conscious market that was starting to move away from mainframes anyway, towards distributed computing.
It was a direct hit on IBM's model.
Absolutely. And it forced Oracle to get incredibly good at database software, making it portable, performant across all these different environments.
So that enemy, IBM, really did define Oracle's early strategy. Then the landscape shifts, late 90s, early 2000s. Microsoft looms large, Windows everywhere, SQL Server challenging Oracle, especially at the lower end. Microsoft felt unstoppable.
Yeah, Microsoft was a different kind of challenge. Their power was software, leveraging that Windows ubiquity. SQL Server was a direct competitor, especially in that Windows world.
So how did Ellison handle that? That kind of perceived dominance could paralyze you with fear.
Right. But Ellison didn't just see them as a market competitor. He framed them almost as this existential threat to the idea of open systems, the platform independence Oracle championed. And the source mentions he didn't just compete on product features.
Oh, what else?
Well, he was very public in his criticism of Microsoft's practices. And significantly, the source notes Oracle actually invested resources, money and effort, into uncovering Microsoft's vulnerabilities, especially during those intense antitrust trials back in the early 2000s.
Wow, okay, so actively digging for weaknesses beyond just the tech specs? That reveals a pretty aggressive strategic depth, doesn't it?
It really does. It's not just about building a better mousetrap. It's about understanding the entire competitive landscape, legal, PR, regulatory, everything, and finding any point of leverage.
Using every tool in the box.
It's exactly.
Yeah.
It shows a willingness to engage on multiple fronts, using legal challenges, public perception, competitive intel, alongside technical innovation. It's like understanding the opponent's entire organization, finding their pressure points, and exploiting them. It's almost like grand chess, not just checkers.
And then there's SAP, the big European enterprise software player. Here, Ellison's approach seems to bridge into our next topic. He didn't just try to build competing software from scratch, did he?
No, and this is key. SAP was incredibly strong in complex areas like ERP, supply chain, CRM, building something to compete with SAP's sheer breadth and depth.
Yeah.
That would have taken forever, cost billions.
Right.
So Ellison looked around and saw companies like PeopleSoft and Siebel Systems. They were already direct competitors to SAP in specific areas, and they had established customers. So the competitive threat from SAP directly led to the decision to use M&A, mergers and acquisitions, as a primary weapon, to instantly gain ground or even an advantage.
Which is a perfect segue. But before we jump fully into M&A, there's this idea mentioned in the source. Having a strong enemy keeps the company focused. Focus as a weapon. How does that actually translate into strategy and execution at Oracle?
Well, think about it. When you have one, or maybe two, really clear, formidable opponents, it creates this powerful sense of purpose, urgency throughout the whole company.
Okay.
It actually simplifies decision-making. Instead of chasing, a dozen different opportunities or spreading resources, then you prioritize actions that directly counter your rival's strengths or exploit their weaknesses or leapfrog what they're doing.
Right, it channels everything.
Exactly. It channels R&D money, sales strategies, even who you hire. It's all focused on this singular goal.
Yeah.
Winning against that specific enemy. It fosters this really competitive culture where everyone knows the stakes, knows who they're up against. That can be incredibly motivating and aligning.
So, thinking about this for you, listening, how could this idea of strategic rivalry apply outside tech? Maybe in your field. How can identifying competitors or even just really challenging goals help clarify your own path and drive your own efforts?
It's about reframing challenges, isn't it? Instead of being intimidated by someone doing better, you ask, how can this challenge act like a mirror? What does it show me about my own unique value, my strengths? Where do I need to improve? What are their advantages, and what unique path can I take that they maybe can't copy? You use that comparison not to feel bad, but as fuel, a catalyst to define and refine your own strategy, your own intensity. It turns that external pressure into internal momentum.
I like that, turning pressure into momentum, and that intensity, that drive, leads perfectly into the next big strategic pillar from the source, using M&A, mergers and acquisitions, not just financially, but as strategic weapons.
Yeah, building power by buying smart. Yeah. Or maybe buying strategically, aggressively.
The quote from Ellison sums it up so bluntly. If they have what we need, we buy them. If they're in our way, we buy them too.
It's a stark contrast, isn't it? The companies that really pride themselves on internal innovation maybe suffer from that not invented here syndrome. They're hesitant to buy outside tech or talent.
Right.
Ellison, though, clearly saw acquisition as just a faster, often more effective way to hit strategic goals. Eliminate a rival. Buy them. Need their tech or talent pool. Buy them. Accelerate into a new market. Buy someone already there. Consolidate customers. Buy the competitor they're using.
It's about speed and removing obstacles.
And integrating their clients. Buying a competitor doesn't just add their assets. It removes a threat and brings their customers into your fold, boosting your market share and leverage almost overnight.
And the most famous, maybe infamous example has to be the hostile takeover of PeopleSoft in 2005. PeopleSoft was a big competitor in enterprise apps, right? Like HR and
Oh
financials.
yeah, a major player. This was anything but friendly. The source details it as this long, intense corporate fight, an 18-month campaign.
18 months, wow.
Yeah, involving regulatory battles, convincing shareholders, massive PR campaigns, and just fierce resistance from PeopleSoft's management. It was a real battle of wills.
And Oracle won in the end.
They did, paid $10.3 billion, which is a huge amount back then, and the result was twofold. One, they got PeopleSoft's tech and their big base of enterprise customers who were deeply dug in with those systems.
Okay.
But maybe just as critically, that hostile takeover, being successful, it sent this very loud, very expensive message to the entire software industry. It basically said, competing directly with Oracle, especially if you get too good, can be incredibly costly and difficult. It was pure strategic muzzle flexing.
It definitely established Oracle as this force that would go to, well, pretty extreme lengths. And then right after that, 2006, they bought Siebel Systems.
Right. Siebel was the undisputed leader in CRM customer relationship management software at that time. Oracle paid $5.85 billion.
And the strategy there.
Clear and immediate. Grab leadership in the vital CRM space. This positioned Oracle strongly against SAP, which had its own CRM, but also against that rising cloud star, Salesforce.
Ah, Salesforce was already on the radar then.
Absolutely. So buying Siebel brought in deep customer connections in a really crucial area of business operations, strengthening Oracle's whole application suite.
The source mentions a few others too, filling strategic gaps. BEA Systems in 2008. What was that about?
BEA was big in middleware. Middleware is basically the software glue that connects different applications, databases, systems. Think of it as plumbing for enterprise IT.
Okay.
Acquiring BEA was crucial because it gave Oracle powerful tools to integrate its own growing suite of apps, the ones they got from buying PeopleSoft and Siebel with their core database and other systems. It was a key layer for offering an integrated solution, really strengthened their position against competitors in application servers and integration. It filled a big piece of the puzzle.
And then later, Microsystems in 2014 and NetSuite in 2016 for, what, $9.3 billion?
Yeah, Microsoft was interesting. They were a leader in specialized software for hospitality and retail, like point-of-sale systems, hotel management software. That acquisition gave Oracle an instant, strong foothold in specific vertical industries, applying their core tech to specialized markets.
And NetSuite, that was a big one.
Huge, $9.3 billion. NetSuite was a pioneer and leader in cloud-based ERP, particularly strong with small and medium businesses, but moving up market too. Buying NetSuite massively boosted Oracle's cloud revenue overnight and gave them a proven born-in-the-cloud ERP system. It really accelerated their own cloud transition, which we should definitely talk more about.
Yeah, we will. So looking at all these, none were just about getting bigger, were they? They were precise moves. Get specific tech, kill a competitor, enter a market, grab customers. That M&A logic Ellison stated, buy what you need, buy who's in your way, seems like it was this constant, powerful engine.
It's almost Darwinian, applied to business. Identify what strengthens you or what threatens you, and use your financial clout to consolidate it. It let them bypass years of R&D, sales cycles, competitive fights. Just acquire the asset or remove the threat.
Of course, the hard part is making it all work together afterward, right? Integration.
Absolutely. Integrating different technologies, company cultures, customer bases, especially at that scale. That's always the challenge with M&A. But Oracle showed they could generally execute, even if it took effort and sometimes tough decisions about which products survive post-acquisition.
So for you listening, how does this aggressive buy what works or buy the competition approach challenge that conventional wisdom about building innovation internally? When might buying be faster or just strategically smarter than building from scratch in your world?
Well, building from scratch often feels pure,
Yeah.
right? More innovative, and it can lead to breakthroughs. But it's also slow, expensive, and there's no guarantee of success in the market. You have to build everything, the tech, the sales team, the customer base, the brand, from zero.
Whereas acquiring.
Acquiring, if you do it right, gives you immediate market share, existing tech, established customer relationships, often key talent. It's super effective if you need to enter a mature market fast or get complex technology quickly, or if your main goal is just to consolidate a fragmented market or neutralize a direct threat. It's really a strategy focused on speed and leverage, maybe more than pure invention.
Speed and leverage definitely seem like Oracle watchwords. Okay, let's pivot now to maybe the most dramatic strategic shift Oracle made, which the source details really well. That massive and initially maybe reluctant transformation to embrace the cloud.
This one's fascinating, especially because it required Ellison himself to, well, publicly change his tune quite a bit.
Yeah, the source rightly brings up that famous quote from 2008 where he kind of mocked the cloud, called it just someone else's computer.
Right, which is pretty ironic now given Oracle's multi-billion-dollar push into cloud infrastructure and applications.
So, given that early skepticism, what was the turning point? What made them realize this huge, established legacy software company absolutely had to go all in on the cloud?
Well, the source suggests it was just the undeniable reality of the market shift.
Hmm.
Oracle's core database and on-premise apps were incredibly powerful, very sticky with customers, but the market was just rapidly moving to cloud models.
Customers demanded it.
Exactly. They wanted the agility, the scalability, the pay-as-you-go economics, legacy software, even Oracle's best stuff. Just couldn't compete on those terms against native cloud solutions from AWS, Azure, and others. To stay relevant, to keep serving enterprise customers the way they now expected, Oracle had to pivot its entire business model, its technology stack, towards the cloud.
The data just became overwhelming.
Yeah, the trends in market adoption, customer demand, competitor growth,
Hmm.
it just became too clear to ignore no matter what skepticism might have existed before.
And that led to this huge investment in building their own cloud platform, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. Now, entering a market where AWS and Azure were already so dominant, how did they design OCI to be different?
They didn't try to just build a copycat of AWS or Azure's general purpose cloud. They knew they probably couldn't win that specific race by just replicating it.
Okay.
Instead, the design focus for OCI was really on serving those demanding enterprise-grade workloads, Oracle's historic sweet spot, especially workloads tied to their core database business.
Ah, playing to their strengths.
Right. OCI was engineered with a focus on performance,
Yeah.
particularly for complex enterprise apps and databases. They use things like bare metal instances, optimized networking, features that really appeal to customers trying to migrate their heavy-duty on-premise systems. They also focused heavily on security and supporting complex hybrid cloud setups.
Hybrid meaning mixing on-premise and cloud.
Exactly. Recognizing that most big companies wouldn't just flip a switch and move everything to one public cloud overnight, they needed seamless integration between their own data centers and the cloud. OCI was built with that reality in mind.
That makes sense, leveraging their existing base. But here's where the source points out something really bold, maybe counterintuitive. Oracle embracing multi-cloud, not just fighting AWS and Azure, but partnering, like with Microsoft Azure.
Yeah, that's a really pragmatic move. They have partnerships, like the Oracle Database Service for Azure, that lets customers connect Oracle databases running in OCI directly to applications running in Azure. They even run some Oracle services inside AWS environments for customers.
So why partner with your biggest competitors? What's the strategic thinking there?
It's driven by the reality of the enterprise market. Most large organizations aren't just using one cloud. They already have stuff running in AWS, Azure, maybe Google Cloud.
Right, they're already multi-cloud.
Exactly. So trying to force those customers to rip everything out and move only to OCI, that would be a huge barrier. By embracing multi-cloud, Oracle makes it much easier for those companies to adopt Oracle's services, especially OCI and their cloud apps, without ditching their existing cloud investments.
So it's about fitting into the customer's existing world.
Precisely. It positions Oracle as a key component within a multi-cloud strategy, offering specialized things like their database-optimized infrastructure that complement the big generalist clouds rather than solely competing head-on. It's about utility, interoperability, and meeting the customer where they already are.
And this lines up with another Ellison philosophy the source mentions. It's not about being first, it's about being better. How do they apply that? How do they make OCI better in specific ways, not just a catch-up attempt?
Since they weren't first to market, they had to offer compelling reasons for enterprises to choose OCI or their cloud services. So they focused on areas where they could leverage their core strengths and offer something genuinely different or superior for their target customer.
Like what?
The source points to things like Oracle's autonomous database. It uses machine learning to basically patch, tune, and manage itself with minimal human intervention. That's a huge selling point for IT departments struggling with complex database management.
I can see that being appealing.
They also built in deep database optimization right at the infrastructure level and focus heavily on security protocols tailored for the highly regulated industries they serve, like finance and government. The goal was to be better at the specific things that mattered most to large, complex enterprises, rather than just trying to match the sheer number of services the hyperscalers offered.
And the source says this differentiated approach is actually working, showing growth, winning deals in finance, government, healthcare.
Yeah, it seems to be demonstrating the power of strategic adaptation, finding your specific value proposition even in a really crowded market. Ellison's pivot here, from skepticism to leading this charge, it really shows that when the market data is clear, you have to be willing to change course, even if it contradicts what you said or believed before. That's essential for staying relevant.
They didn't just copy, they differentiated based on who they were and who their customers were.
Exactly.
So for you listening, what does this huge corporate shift teach us about adaptability? In business, career, maybe even personal growth, when does the data market trends, performance numbers, feedback, even just a gut feeling demand a change in direction, even if it challenges your long-held beliefs or past successes?
It really highlights that being right initially isn't nearly as important as being willing to become right as things change.
Yeah.
Stubbornly clinging to old views, that's just a path to becoming obsolete. Real strategic agility means looking objectively at the current reality and adjusting, even if it means admitting a past view was wrong or incomplete. Sometimes the biggest innovation is just deciding to fundamentally change your approach based on new information.
That willingness to change based on data, powerful stuff. Okay, let's move to another strategic element the source highlights, Ellison's view of geography. Not just logistics, but as a strategic lever, location as leverage.
Absolutely. This isn't just about finding cheaper office space or labor. It's about strategically placing Oracle's operations, its data centers, its talent hubs, to gain specific advantages. Things like complying with regulations, accessing industry ecosystems, being where future growth is happening. It's about where Oracle's physical presence can exert the most influence.
The most obvious recent example was moving the HQ in 2020 from Silicon Valley, their longtime home, down to Austin, Texas. What were the reasons given, and how does the source frame that move?
Well, the stated reasons were pretty clear. Texas's more business-friendly tax policies, a less stringent regulatory environment compared to California, and access to Austin's growing tech talent pool without the, extreme costs of the Bay Area.
Makes sense.
But the force frames it as more than just cost-cutting, though that was surely part of it. It was also seen as a statement, aligning Oracle with different economic and regulatory dynamics. Maybe a recognition that tech talent and innovation were becoming more distributed, moving beyond just the valley. It felt like a strategic repositioning.
And they didn't stop there. 2024, they announced a big new hub in Nashville, Tennessee. The source connects this specifically to industry clusters.
Exactly. Nashville is a major center for the healthcare industry and also strong in logistics. This move seems deeply tied to Oracle's huge strategic push into healthcare data, especially after buying Cerner, which we absolutely need to talk about.
Right.
Putting a major hub in Nashville positions Oracle physically closer to a critical mass of healthcare clients, partners, and the specialized talent they need to really execute on their healthcare ambitions. It's tactical geography supporting a huge vertical strategy.
And globally, Oracle's been just as aggressive, right? Especially building out cloud infrastructure. The source lists big investments, Saudi Arabia, Spain, India, UAE, South Korea.
Yeah, these global expansions serve two really critical goals, particularly for the cloud business. First, regulatory proximity.
Meaning being physically close to meet regulations?
Precisely. Industries like finance, government, and especially healthcare often have strict rules about where data must physically reside and be processed. Offering cloud regions inside a specific country or region is often non-negotiable to win business from regulated clients there.
Okay, that makes sense. And the second goal?
Sovereign cloud compliance. This is a growing trend worldwide. More countries are passing laws about data residency and data sovereignty, demanding that sensitive national data stays within their borders. Sometimes they even require the infrastructure to be run by local entities or meet specific national security standards.
So building local data centers helps meet those laws.
Exactly. By building these local cloud regions, Oracle can offer solutions that meet those specific national requirements. It makes them a viable, trusted partner for governments and critical infrastructure providers in those countries, potentially shutting out competitors who don't have that local presence.
So like the source says, it's not just about buildings, it's about positioning Oracle's influence, its ability to serve clients under specific legal frameworks, and cementing itself as a global provider that can meet diverse national needs.
Totally. In a world where data rules are increasingly geographic, strategic physical presence isn't optional anymore. It's a competitive must-have. Ellison's focus here ensures Oracle can grab global opportunities tied to data localization and serve those critical regulated industries everywhere.
So for you listening, how does thinking geographically give an edge, even if your work isn't multinational? How can physical location or just understanding the regulatory geography of your field still matter in our digital world?
Well, think about things like supply chain resilience, maybe optimizing distribution, accessing specific talent pools that cluster somewhere, the value of being physically near key customers or partners for certain kinds of collaboration or service, or just navigating regional rules or market preferences. Even now, location can impact cost, compliance, speed, your ability to deliver tailored experiences. Ignoring geography means ignoring a potential lever for efficiency and advantage.
That's a great point. Okay, let's dig into another long-standing pillar of Ellison's strategy, this pursuit of a full-stack approach, controlling the whole tech stack, hardware, OS, database, applications, creating an end-to-end ecosystem.
Yeah, this is really fundamental to how Oracle built what some call its fortress. The core belief seems to be, if you control every single layer that an enterprise relies on for its critical operations, you can optimize everything to work together seamlessly, better than if customers mix and match from different vendors.
And the promise is better performance, better security.
Theoretically, yes, because you can tune each layer specifically for the others. It should also enhance security as you have visibility and control over all the potential weak points in the stack. And, crucially, from a business standpoint, it creates incredible stickiness.
Lock in.
Pretty much.
Hmm.
Once a customer is running their core business on your integrated stack, switching becomes extremely difficult and expensive.
The big move that really cemented this full-stack ambition was buying Sun Microsystems in 2010, right? $7.4 billion. The source called it gaining the crucial building blocks.
That's a good way to put it. Sun, even though they were struggling a bit then, had this incredible portfolio of foundational technologies that Oracle needed for that true end-to-end vision.
So what exactly did they get from Sun?
Well, the source lists the big ones. First, Java, which was and still is one of the world's most widely used programming languages.
Oh.
Absolutely critical for enterprise apps and as a foundation of Android.
Huge. Owning Java instantly made Oracle indispensable to tons of developers and companies.
Absolutely. Then there was MySQL, the most popular open source database at the time.
Right. Adding that to their own proprietary Oracle database gave them control over a massive chunk of the database market, including that growing open source piece.
Yep. Strategically, it solidified Oracle's position right at the center of data management, even if it was controversial in the open source world.
And the hardware parts. Sun, Solaris OS, and Spark's chips.
Those were key at the hardware and operating system level. Owning Solaris and Spark meant Oracle could optimize its core software, especially the Oracle database, right down to the system level. They could engineer their database to run super efficiently on their own hardware and OS.
Promising performance others couldn't match.
That was the idea. It led to integrated systems like their Exadata database machine, which became really successful by delivering extreme performance specifically for database workloads.
So the vision wasn't just collecting tech, it was delivering this fully integrated package. Database on Oracle OS, on Oracle hardware, running Oracle apps.
Exactly. A single vendor responsible for the whole shebang performance, reliability for your most critical systems. No finger pointing between hardware, OS, database, and application vendors. Just one throat to choke, basically, but hopefully delivering an optimized, reliable solution.
And that goal of stickiness was key, making it super hard for customers to leave once they were embedded.
Totally. If your entire financial system, your supply chain, your critical government database runs on an Oracle-engineered stack their database, maybe their hardware, their middleware, their apps, migrating all that to different vendors, the complexity, the risk, the cost, it becomes almost unthinkable for many organizations.
So that deep integration equals stable, high-margin, recurring revenue.
Precisely. A formidable barrier to entry for competitors and a huge switching cost for customers.
The source even compares it to Apple's model-tight hardware-software integration, but for big enterprise clients like banks, governments, telcos, hospitals.
It's a good analogy. Apple controlled the end-to-end user experience. Oracle aimed to control the end-to-end enterprise experience. Owning every layer lets you optimize for reliability, performance, security in a way a fragmented stack struggles to match, delivering a premium integrated platform where the whole is theoretically greater than the sum of its parts.
And Ellison's quote after the Sun deal really captures that. You can't compete with us unless you control the whole experience, and now we do. The source argues this full-stack control is still a key edge for Oracle, even in the cloud era.
Yeah, even in the cloud, where layers are virtualized, the principle holds. A vendor who understands and controls how the app, the database, the OS, and the underlying infrastructure interact can offer unique optimizations, security integrations, troubleshooting advantages. Oracle's full-stack heritage lets them build cloud services, like OCI, that are deeply tuned for their core database and enterprise apps in ways that maybe generalist clouds find harder to replicate.
Okay, so for you listening, how does this idea of controlling the whole stack or value chain create an advantage? Can that principle of end-to-end control apply outside tech, maybe in managing projects or initiatives in your own work?
Well, think about any process where different steps or parts need to work together smoothly.
Hmm.
Manufacturing, right?
Mm.
Controlling the supply chain from raw materials to finished goods.
Hmm.
Or a service business managing every single customer touch point. Even a creative project controlling the concept, the production, the distribution.
Right.
Having control or at least deep influence over that whole chain allows for better quality control, more efficiency, less risk, and the ability to deliver a more consistent, maybe differentiated final product or service. It gives you levers to fine-tune things that you just don't have
Yeah.
if you only manage one piece of the puzzle.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, that full stack ambition has clearly shaped Oracle. Let's talk finally about what the source calls Oracle's biggest, maybe most strategic bet yet. The huge move into healthcare, centered on buying Cerner.
Monumental is the right word. This signaled a major new direction, a huge commitment. Oracle bought Cerner Corporation in 2021 for, get this, $28.3 billion.
Wow.
As the source says, that's the single biggest acquisition Oracle has ever made. Dwarfs PeopleSoft, dwarfs Sun. It just underscores how incredibly important Ellison saw this sector being.
So why healthcare? And what exactly is Cerner? Why spend that much?
Cerner is one of the two giants in electronic health records, EHR systems. These are the incredibly complex software platforms hospitals and clinics use to manage everything. Patient records, appointments, billing, clinical workflows. They are absolutely mission critical.
The backbone of hospital IT.
Totally. But the Force points out this wasn't just about buying another software company. Fundamentally, it was about gaining access to and positioning Oracle right in the middle of arguably the most critical, complex, sensitive, and heavily regulated data set on Earth. Patient health records.
Not just business data, this is human data, life and death stuff. The source quotes Ellison saying the goal is to deliver better information to healthcare professionals, resulting in better patient outcomes. Which sounds great, almost humanitarian.
And while improving outcomes is surely a goal, the underlying business strategy fits Ellison's pattern perfectly. Identify critical data, identify a massive market, and dominate it. Healthcare spending is enormous, over $4 trillion a year just in the U.S. and growing globally.
And it's a sector needing modernization.
Desperately. Despite its importance, healthcare IT has often been slow to modernize. Systems are fragmented or run on old tech, aren't built for cloud scale, or for the kind of data analysis modern medicine needs. Interoperability between systems is a huge problem.
So Oracle sees an opportunity to bring its strengths, database tech, cloud infrastructure, OCI, enterprise software experience, AI, and apply them to healthcare. Streamline EHRs, connect systems, become the infrastructure backbone.
That's exactly the play. Take their core skills in building secure, reliable systems for demanding industries like finance or government, and apply them to healthcare's unique challenges. They see a chance to bring modern cloud scale, performance, and AI to a sector that badly needs it, and become indispensable to hospitals worldwide in the process.
And the source ties the Cerner deal right back to Ellison's established strategies. How does it fit the playbook?
Perfectly. First, recurring revenue. EHRs are sticky, mission-critical systems. Hospitals sign long-term contracts. Stable income. Second, regulatory mode. Healthcare software, especially EHRs, has incredibly strict rules, like APA in the U.S. Meeting those rules is complex and expensive.
Creates a high barrier to entry.
Exactly. The barrier Oracle, with its experience in regulated industries, is good at handling. Third, mission critical. Hospitals simply cannot function if their EHR goes down. That demands extreme reliability, availability, security right in Oracle's wheelhouse of building robust, full-stack, high-availability systems.
So buying Cerner isn't just selling software to healthcare, it's positioning Oracle to become a core infrastructure provider for human health data globally. The source ends by saying, Ellison seems to believe whoever controls and secures the most important data shapes the future. And in healthcare, that data is profound.
Yeah, this acquisition really feels like a culmination of so many of Oracle's core strategies. Find a huge, complex, underserved market, leverage core strengths database, cloud, enterprise systems, create high barriers via regulation and complexity, lock in long-term revenue, and position yourself at the heart of an absolutely critical global data set. It's a massive strategic bet on the future of healthcare being driven by data and infrastructure.
Okay, so here's a final thought for you to consider. Building on everything we've discussed about Oracle focusing on critical data and infrastructure. Given how essential mastering specific data and infrastructure became for Oracle's dominance in finance, government, now healthcare, what essential data or infrastructure is most critical in your own field, your industry, maybe even your personal interests? And how might understanding the power of controlling, mastering, or just having strategic access to that foundational layer shape your own approach to growth or competition or success?
It's a great question. What information, what foundational elements are truly indispensable in your world? What are the key resources that, if you really mastered them, could unlock significant opportunities or give you real leverage?
Something fascinating to think about. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the strategic world of Larry Ellison and how he built Oracle into the powerhouse it is today.
Thanks for listening.